Hello everyone, we're continuing with section 6 of Klal 1 of Hilchot Yisroel Lashon Harah. Now this section talks about an important an interesting case of where one must be prepared to forfeit his entire livelihood in order to avoid speaking Lashon Harah. Now if one sees that through adopting the trait of not speaking negatively about a fellow Jew and not speaking other forms of forbidden speech, diburim asurim, if he sees that he will suffer a heavy loss in his livelihood because of his trait to not speak negatively about other Jews and other people, he must nevertheless still train himself to refrain from speaking Lashon Harah and other types of forbidden speech. So, for example, an employee, right? The common example of an employee whose employers are very lacking in their Torah observance, and unfortunately nowadays such people, they are especially lacking and especially neglectful in regard to the grave sin of Lashon Harah. So much so that if they see someone whose mouth is not as wide open to engage in Lashon Harah as their mouth is, right? They're not as willing to, speak badly about other Jews, and they consider him foolish and dim-witted, as the translation here goes. So much so that because of this view of the person, they might very well remove him from his position and leaving him with no means of supporting his family. Nevertheless, the Chafetz Chaim says it is forbidden for one to speak Lashon Harah even under such trying circumstances. Now, the Chafetz Chaim could have listed another case, and this is the case of, a more simple case, and this is the case of where his boss forcibly tells him, you better speak negatively about someone, about a coworker, or else I'll fire you. However, in this case, there are exceptions where one is allowed to speak negatively about his coworker, and such exceptions are, for example, if his coworker is causing a negative loss for his company, right? He's causing them to suffer financial loss or so forth. And then in that case, an employee is obligated to inform the boss so that the company can recoup their loss. Or, for example, if the boss mistakenly thinks that the employee he did some wrongdoing, then in that case an employee is permitted to preserve his reputation by denying the charge, even though this might cause suspicion to fall upon another co-worker. Now, these cases are permitted under the license of speaking leto'elet, for a benefit, which we will discuss the details and laws further, B'ezrat Hashem. However, this simple case is talking about simply where a boss simply wants the employee to engage in speaking Lashon Harah baselessly for no purpose, no beneficial purpose, and in that case it is forbidden. And as the Chafetz Chaim concludes, this is the case for all prohibitions, for which one is required to forfeit everything it has, rather than violate the prohibition, because a loss of livelihood is not deemed a pikuach nefesh, a life-threatening danger. And this is explained in the Shulchan Aruch, Yerodea. Now, the question arises, now we talked about speaking Lashon Harah. What about listening to Lashon Harah? Does one have to forfeit his livelihood so that he does not listen to and has v'sholem accept Lashon Harah? Because as we learned, accepting and speaking Lashon Harah are just as forbidden. Now, if one is sure that he can listen to Lashon Harah and be sure that he will not accept it, then in that case he does not have to forfeit his job, as all the poskim agree on that. However, if there is an uncertainty whether one will accept Lashon Harah or not, then there is a big machloket with regard to the poskim, the halachic codifiers, and they differentiate between a passive prohibition, where one automatically transgresses, such as failing to pay an employee, or an accepting Lashon Harah, which is not passive, but one does, purposely, one accepts Lashon Harah. In that case, all opinions agree that one is obligated to forfeit all his money. Now, there is an example. So someone, for example, works as a hairdresser, and they're certain that they will not, that they can restrain themselves from actively speaking Lashon Harah to their clients, but they cannot be certain that they will avoid passively listening to their clients' conversations of Lashon Harah and perhaps accepting the derogatory remarks. And the poskim differ as to whether she's obligated to give up her livelihood to avoid listening to and accepting Lashon Harah, and it's better to ask your rabbi whether one has to forfeit his livelihood in such a case. Thank you for listening. We'll continue next time.